Good evening, everyone. Thank God we're getting this one done. It was touch and go because of my sister's choppy Wi-Fi, but we're here to discuss the shit show state that is Tottenham Hotspur. And I can't believe I've just been saying to the back end, it has taken this long to get this great man on. Phil, how are you, brother?
Mate, I'm honoured and privileged to be with you, and just to be making my debut on Tottenham on Tour. It's obviously the connoisseur's choice of podcasts and YouTube viewing. So, mate, listen, I've finally made it. I've climbed my personal mountain. I've made it to the top. This is my trophy. So, if only the leadership at Spurs and the players and the tea ladies and the chefs had sort of my mentality to win and achieve, we'd be getting somewhere.
You know what it is, mate? I've just realised I said you were one of our number one targets, but Levy's been holding the transfer, so it's just taken this long, like Damio, to get you
Mate,
on. But
it's just incredible.
I am so happy to have you on this one because this one we are going in, we are going hard. This is going to be a damnation of Daniel Levy. You ready to do this with me, Phil?
Let's go. I'm strapped in.
Tottenham on Tour.
Alrighty, so people will know in these specials that we've done, we've targeted different areas where the hierarchy, this brilliant businessman, this wonderful thing that we're creating, we've gone on many angles. But today, and I was so happy as with Phil, we're going to be discussing something very important. Trophies? What's a trophy? So as we know, 22 years, one trophy. We're blessed, aren't we, Phil? We're absolutely
Absolutely.
Mate, the almost. So we're just going to run through a list. Now, I want to say thank you to the guy that put this on yesterday's show that I did with Amir. So big up to Jurgen Blasnen, if I've said your surname right, who sent me a list of the top 6 teams and what they've won. Now, we're going to go through them. Now, I've got to say, I've taken out Community Shields, FIFA Super Cups. I've done Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup, Champions League, Europa League. That's it. They have all won more trophies than what you're about to see. But I just wanted to make this a bit fair and make it not look so bad.
So you're being generous. You're basically
I'm being generous. I'm actually trying to do this dickhead a favour. So, Chelsea.
You mean Levy, not me, right?
I do definitely mean the latter. No, that's the first one. The first. Definitely mean Levy. Definitely mean Levy. Chelsea. Since 2003. Remember that year, 2003.
Okay, I'll remember.
2 years after we were bought, Chelsea have gone on to win 5 Premier Leagues, 5 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, 2 Champions Leagues, and a Europa League. That's just since the Abramovich days. And yes, blah, blah, blah. 2 years after Daniel Levy. Manchester United. Look at that year again, Phil. 2005. The Glazers. 4 years after we were bought out. 5 Premier Leagues, an FA Cup, 5 League Cups, and Europa League. We've had 1. Manchester City. 2008. 7 years after the Supreme Leader took over. 6 Premier Leagues, 2 FA Cups, 6 League Cups. And let me just say, I think we pretty much guarantee that that's 6 on the PL in a matter of days is going up 1.
Well, all 3 of those might be going up by 1 digit, I think.
Oh, no, apart from the League Cup, but we might be adding a Champions League.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Splitting hairs here, Phil. Phil, how dare you? How dare you?
Well, to be fair, mate, I'm just trying to give the League Cup its due respect as one of the major trophies here in England. But obviously, for those that want to count the creme de la creme of the European Cup as was, Champions League as is,
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. You're right to nitpick there. Well done.
I know. I mean, come on. And then we've got Liverpool. 2010. 9 years after. 1 Premier League, 1 FA Cup, 2 League Cups. And don't we dare forget that league, the Champions League they got, because we got to the final. We got to the final.
We were there.
Morris scored a hat-trick. Yes. Incredible news. And I hate doing
I may never, ever live, to etch that out of my memory. But yeah, thanks for bringing it back up tonight.
I mean, we have to celebrate it, mate. We have to celebrate a semi-final hat trick. It is a trophy, no?
No, it's not.
Let's try. See, we're trying it. We're trying. And then the one I really didn't want to bring up, and thank God I'm not putting a 1. Thank God I'm not putting a 1 next to another thing. 4 FA Cups for them not down the road.
So what does the 11s? Was this when Kroenke took over?
Yeah. This is when Kroenke took over. So all of these clubs have been bought out since we have been taken over. And I'm going to give you the full amount now, because this is the full amount, including those cups that I didn't mention, like the Super Leagues and whatever.
World Club Cup and that stuff.
Yeah. Chelsea, 21 trophies since 2003. Manchester United, 19 trophies. Manchester City, 2008. Remember Man City's history. All right, we'll get into it. They were bought out the year we won the Carabao Cup in 2008, our last trophy. 17 trophies.
Jesus.
So it could become 19.
Yeah.
Liverpool, 8. Arsenal, 8. The other 4 being Community Shields. Every single one of them, after Daniel, Philip, Levy took over this club. What are your immediate reactions to this, Phil?
I mean, it's just sickening, isn't it, mate? I mean, the difficulty is with this for me, you've got a lot of different elements to this, but ultimately, of the so-called big 6, we're the only ones in that period since our new ownership. Yep. All the owners that you've just mentioned have changed. Some obviously came in afterwards, as you say, the same year as our last trophy. But in all those years, we've only done 1 League Cup. But you know what, Brian, one thing I think is worth noting here as well is, although, of course, the object of our attention, if not affection, obviously, is Daniel Philip. Thanks for sullying my Christian name. And
that's my middle, mate. It's my middle name.
Yeah, great. It's a great middle name. Maybe that's the problem. If you've got it as a middle name, you're really in trouble. If you've got it as a Christian name, you're an absolute dickhead. Anyway, exactly. we'll move on. We'll move on. Maybe that's the only saving grace Levy has. Good. His parents had good choice in names. But on a serious note, as much as we focus on Levy, Lewis, ENIC, and their stewardship, and it's absolutely right to do that, because that's what where we are at the moment. Possessions, 9/10 of the law, and all that. I think we've got to turn back and look at previous regimes as well, because ultimately, a lot of this malaise set in under Sugar, and of course, you could argue, and rightfully, Sugar did come in at a time when, if you wind the clock back to our last proper glory, in my eyes, even though I've celebrated both League Cups with vigour, was of course the 91 FA Cup success. And when you're talking about a backs to the wall win against all odds, to beat the Gooners in the semi-final, I mean, we stopped them from doing the double. A team that had only conceded 18 goals all season, and they'd already, as we know, gone to get their suits measured. And thanks for the team talk, George Graham. Probably as good as the one that he gave when he was working for us a few years later on. But that basically, if we didn't win that cup, we might have been, we might have gone into administration. So there are arguments, and I know some people still feel that Sugar came in and was like a white knight sort of situation, and there was that element at first. But really, he didn't prioritise a football either. No way did he. And of course, so I actually go all the way back, and I've got a little prop here, Brian.
You got a prop? Amazing.
I've brought something. If you can see this,
I can.
This is the last proper glory night at the Lane.
Yep.
A certain Mr. Roberts there. This is one of my prized possessions. My cousin Tony, God rest him, got me that in a charity auction from Mr. Roberts himself. So, I always have that close to my heart because of what it signifies, but also because of Tony. And since that'll be 40 years ago next season, 40 years. And since that day, we've only won one FA Cup, right?
Jesus.
One FA Cup and 2 League Cups. And look, the takeaway for me from this, and we're going back to your original question, what are my thoughts on this? No one has a divine right to trophies. No one at all, right? And I know we always discuss, you know, if we're going to be treated like customers or clients and be charged the highest prices to watch association football worldwide, we should expect something for it. But ultimately, look, we can't be, you know, entitled or, you know, deluded, if you want to use another expression, into thinking we've got any more right than anyone else to win a trophy. What my problem with the last 30, almost 40 years now, if you want to wind it all the way back to those days, and almost, to be fair, you could trace it all the way back to, you know, to when Mr. Birkinshaw had got his, you know, decided to take his show on down the road. Ultimately, this club was built on competing, you know, and we had an illustrious history all the way through, coming from our amateur days, still the only amateur team to win the FA Cup. And I know football obviously has changed beyond all recognition since the days we did that. We were promoted out of the old second division into the first, won the league in 51, you know, with the push and run team of Arthur Rowe. And then 10 years later, a man that was playing in that team, Bill Nick, created one of the best teams probably the world's ever seen. My dad says basically now Man City play very similar style to how Spurs in 61 used to play. And really, the 60s, even though we never won a league again, which obviously is a crying shame, you know, littered with trophies. Even the 70s, where we got relegated, you know, we had glory in Europe. You know, we won more cups. And then obviously the early 80s was a fantastic period again. And then what's happened since? What's happened since? The club is now unrecognisable to the one that we had. And it's all been normalised. And I think it's just that the standards have slipped further and further down. And again, look, we can't be entitled and think, you know, we've got any more right to anything than anyone else. But if you look, let's actually go in and analyse these clubs that you've talked about. Okay, you could say at least 1 or 2 are backed by mega money. Well, 2 definitely were. One, obviously, Man United is a financial juggernaut, behemoth, whatever you know, superlatives you want to chuck around, but it is basically on a different level. But really, are Arsenal any more well-funded than we are during that period? A Liverpool? I don't know. You could argue not. But yet, even in the times when we were starting to finish above Arsenal and we thought we were finally turning the tables on them, look at how many FA Cups they've won. And that used to be our trophy.
So I'll tell you what we're going to do, Phil. We're going to start making our way up the ladder now and just breaking down. So we'll start with the filth. And what I'm going to say about the filth is, first of all, I'm going to talk about them. 4 FA Cups since 2011. We haven't had one since 1991. In 1991, we were the first team to win it 8 times. The very first. Fast forward 30 years, Arsenal have now won it 14 times and have the record. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Arsenal have moved stadiums since that as well, haven't they? And still managed to win trophies. Yes, they had the problem. And so one thing I always give Arsene Wenger praise for, he came out and said, do you know what? When we move to this ground, that we're going to have to tighten our purse strings. This is going to have to, you're going to see some stars go to pay for this. But once we pay for it, different story, which obviously hasn't materialized till recently. But he told the truth. We were told, don't worry, the money for the stadium's here, and the money for transfers is here. 2 years without signing anyone, or 3 windows, whatever you want to call it. And you look at them, and we've had at close quarters to look at what they've done and what they did wrong. Have we? No. Their fans protest? Yes. Have they stuck by managers? Yes. Have we? No. Who'd have thought, Phil? sticking with the manager and having a plan bears fruit. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously, Brian, the worst thing I think to look down the road at the moment is that almost the plan that they have, you know, you could say they just plagiarized from what we were doing in the Poch era. But obviously, I don't want to open that can of worms on such a special occasion. Because let's make no bones about it. Whether you love Poch or don't, and maybe some people's feelings are about to change depending on where he next resides and applies his trade. In the end, we didn't win anything, you know, and this is the biggest thing. And shout out to Dave, who I go to Spurs with. He always says, you know, winners find a way, losers find excuses.
Yep.
And unfortunately, you know, whatever we want to say, whether we want to blame, oh, they're backed by an oil state, or they're owned by a billionaire, or, you know, we've moved stadiums, or, you know, our main player was injured, or whatever excuses you want to come out with. And Jesus wept, Spurs have got a massive archive full of legendary excuses and a massive vault under the stadium of hard luck stories to add to the vintage collection. But you know what? 84, we had a lot of our key players missing. That had actually put trophies in the cabinet before. But, you know, if you ever heard Mickey Hazard talk about this, he said, this is my opportunity to show I can play and that I can win something for this club. And they went out and did it. And those players, you know, they probably don't get the credit amongst the supporters now that they should, because,
Yep.
I mean, that's an amazing achievement. And look, it's a forlorn hope, because I don't think we'll prioritise it anyway, even if we get in it. But, you know, now that we can't get into the Champions League, but that's not the be all and end all in my eyes. If we do qualify for the Europa, I always want to still call it UEFA. Yeah, I can't bring myself to say it. In the end, can you imagine how lovely it would be to win that trophy again on the 40th anniversary?
Oh.
And the finals in Dublin, and as someone with strong Irish roots myself, and knowing a few Irish Spurs supporters, I'm sure that would be a fantastic event to go over there and support the Spurs in that final, and hopefully bring back the silverware that we've been so desperate for. So, look, that's obviously a pipe dream. We're going to end up in the Conference League, playing some farmers somewhere, and probably getting knocked out again. Even though last time was a joke because of COVID. But this one, I think, sticks in the claw the most, because even though the last however many years, 12 years since they were taken over, roughly has seen a bit of a sea change. What's it all been for, Brian? Because we never capitalised on it trophy-wise at all, obviously. And even in their dark periods, they've won 4 FA Cups. So
this is it, Phil. And do you know what? You say this, what I was about to say at the end of this. Let's play a little game and try and guess which one of these clubs annoys you the most with the trophy haul.
But I've got
you said, "Oh, you're out already."
But you know what? Each one of them does. Each one of them does in their own way. But
there's one that does me, and see if you can guess mine as we go up the list.
Okay.
So the next one we're coming to is Liverpool. So Liverpool, let's have a look at it. They've been bought by FCW or FSG, whatever the FSG. This, for me, all stems to getting Klopp in, backing a manager, and then when Coutinho dealt with Coutinho very well. What do you need? What do you want? I need a world-class goalkeeper because our goalkeeper's shit, and I need a world-class centre-back to sort this out. Again, hey presto, what do you know? A manager with a plan, a manager allowed to bring in his players. Away you go. They've built on Anfield. They've played for 3 years or 2.5. They were unstoppable. And what do you know, mate? Again, backing a manager, giving him what he wants brings success. I mean, what have you got to say about the Liverpool time under FSG?
I mean, what's most galling about this one? You know, I think Liverpool are a great club phenomenal heritage, to borrow a phrase from our good friend Sava's channel. They, you know, steeped in history. They're very proud of their history, and rightly so. But they've continued to win things, and they've continued to set high standards. And to be fair, they back, you know, the fans back the club to the hilt, as they should. But the thing that's most galling about this, well, there's two things. One, when we got to the Champions League final, so many people came out of the woodwork that I didn't even know liked football, let alone knew were Liverpool fans. And I'm like, they like coming up to me at work saying, "Oh, Phil, do you think you'll give us a game, or do you think we'll beat you in the final?" I was like, "What do you mean we? Who are you? Like what? Sorry, mate. What are we talking about here?" They're like, "Oh, I'm a Liverpool fan." I was like, "I guess that bit, but like this is the first I've heard of it, and we've worked together 15 years. Like, do you know what I mean? What's happening here?" But anyway, but the second thing is, let's wind the clock back to when Karius had a beast, and you know, one of our favourite sons, Gareth Bale, did a madness in the final with that overhead kick coming off the bench. You know, in the end of the day, they got absolutely owned in that final. Actually, to be fair, the football-wise, they didn't play too badly.
With Salah going off as well.
Yeah, with Ramos doing his bits. But then what did they do? They went back to the drawing board, as you say. They saw where their deficiencies were, and they went again. Okay? So this is what we failed to do. This is what, when the time was needed to actually, you know, put the furniture in the house, do the right thing. You know, the worst thing, Brian, right, is about this. In years gone by, if we were having this conversation a few years ago, some of these numbers would be different, of course. Ours wouldn't be any different, unfortunately. But we'd be saying, one of the sticks we'd be beating Mr. Daniel Philip Levy with, and Smoking Joe Lewis, is you don't back the team, you don't spend the money. We're always doing it on the cheap. Now, to a certain extent, that's still true, but we are spending vast amounts of money on transfers. And to my mind, it's all been put up the wall. And interestingly, our net spend must be creeping up, and we're going up the net spend league strongly because we're not turning over players well enough. You know, players out is not quite as important as players in, but it's important in terms of making the books balance. And you know what? Going back to your earlier statement, and I saw your tongue firmly in cheek, young man. It's like the great businessman himself. You know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that there's an octogenarian billionaire sitting on a yacht somewhere in the Bahamas thinking, "You're not making me as much money as you said, Danny. What's going on here?"
Please. This is the thing. And again, they, like you said, they corrected their ways. Liverpool, they realised the deficiencies. They listened to the manager. Probably said, "Listen, if this goes wrong, this is on you. That's 150 mil. If this goes wrong, this is on you." But off you go. Manchester City, like you said, Phil, you said two juggernauts. This is most definitely one of them. But you know what I will say about them? And I said this yesterday on whatever show I was on. I can't remember. It was Tottenham away. You look at this season with the Haaland deal. They all right. They had him on a release keep, but it weren't. They just went and splurged 60 million. They recouped it with Zinchenko and Jesus. And for the last couple of years, they've been selling stars off. It's not like when Manchester City first came in and it was 400 million on right backs and left backs and Guardiola's first season and 80 million here. Apart from Grealish, the other buyers have been average with what today's price is. Not like Chelsea did this summer with the Argentinian whatever, I can't remember his name, but they didn't go bang bang bang. They're recouping the money. Yes, they've got the money, and if they flex their pecs, you ain't going to win unless you're Newcastle or PSG or Chelsea. But they've started doing it wisely. They've started doing it well. Again, we're not even getting to a Pep discussion because we know just. But also what they've been doing for the community of Manchester as well. What they have done with that training facility over the road and everything. But Manchester City have been doing it the right way recently. Yes, they can spend money. They bring it in. But they're recouping money and letting stars go. And you just mentioned, Phil, how our balance must be getting bad because our players are just woeful. Guardiola's like, get Jesus out, get Zinchenko out, forget it's a Premier League rival, get the money, we recoup, we recycle. And I mean, they're unstoppable at the moment, aren't they?
Look, I think I would say we can't completely ignore the moral aspect of it and the sports washing piece. So the sort of the source of funds or source of wealth aspect, who knows whether these allegations and charges are going to be upheld and what's going to happen about that. So obviously we'll wait and see. For God's sake, I hope they don't strip them of their title this year. But obviously the League Cup in 21, if they want to chuck that back to the team in North London, they can do. How we'll celebrate it or not, I don't know now. But as long as they don't chuck the Gooners the Premier League title for this year and strip it from them. But let's not go there. Let's rescind that line of questioning. But the thing I think is all the things, whether it's the community, as you mentioned rightly, or whether it's how they've built the foundations of the club, it's absolutely phenomenal. But again, it's what you said about Liverpool and putting a plan and the backroom staff in place. It's not just a backroom staff. There's literally a whole community of people. But they went and got the sporting director from Barca, basically in preparation for getting Pep in. However many months or years beforehand, they were literally laying the groundwork for this. And I mean, if you want a blueprint of how to run a football club in the 21st century, this is it, right? This is it. And look, I mean, all these clubs and all these ways of winning that we're going through shows me there are different ways of winning. There's no like one set rule of how you go about these things, but it's just you have to have an end goal and something in mind. I mean, look, I know you won't think it because of the state of what you see before you today, but I've done a few endurance events in my life, and basically, if you've got a dream of what you want to do, you say to yourself, right, this is the event I'm going to do, say a marathon. You can't just get up off your sofa one day just because you've got a dream that you want to do a marathon and then go and do a marathon, because I'll break it down to you in case you're under any false sense of hope. You'll end up doing yourself a mischief. And if you make it to the end, God bless you, but you'll be in pieces and you may never walk straight again. So bit by bit by bit, you need to build that up. You need to build yourself up physically. You need to build yourself up mentally. And you need to get your body used to what that details. And obviously just generally in life. But, you can break it down like anything like this into 3 things. You've got to have a plan. You've got to prepare for it. And then you've got to execute. Spurs, and to be fair, the Spurs, the best period, you could say, I know some people will say it was the Redknapp era was actually more enjoyable in retrospect. It was a bit more rock and roll. But, if you say Poch, as we understand, the Poch era did have that 5-year plan.
Yep.
Get us Champions League football by the time we get back to the renovated White Hart Lane, Northumberland Park project.
Yep.
But essentially, we got there early. God bless Poch, he got us there early. And then really we didn't have a plan B. Not as in we need a plan B because, plan A has failed. We need a plan B because we've ticked off plan A. What's the next mission? What's the next mission, Colonel? And Colonel Levy didn't have anywhere to go or any ideas of what next, because what he should have done, and really what I would ask him, if I met him today, what I would say is, look, as the leader of our football club, you should be kept awake at night thinking, we've got Man City and their millions. We've got Newcastle on the scene now. We've got potentially mega owners at a mega club in Manchester. How am I going to get Spurs a Premier League title in the next 5 years? How am I going to get us a Champions League in the next 10 years? How are we going to become the preeminent club in London? All of these things should be on his mind. How do we do it? But until you actually ask yourself and have that drive and the goal of that's where I want to get to, how are you ever going to get there? How are you ever going to get there?
Mate, you're right. And now
City had a plan and a dream of. As Staveley said it for Newcastle as well. They're not on this list, but if we reconvene in 5 years' time, Brian, they might well be. And you know what? Look, if they might fall flat on it, but you know, if you've got a plan, look, what did Bill Nick say? You know, we'll aim so high that even in failure, there'll be an echo of glory.
I remember before we bring on, he also said, if you haven't won a trophy, you've had a bad season.
Facts.
Well, that means we've had 21 of them. So now
Who's next?
We're coming up to United now.
Jesus,
this is the one that's got me pissed more than anything. I'm going to go into people like, why are you pissed? Why are you pissed? So
talk me through it.
I'm going to go on to this because I'm going to add. This is the one team where I'm going to add the extra trophies: 5 Premier Leagues, an FA Cup, 5 League Cups, a Europa League. Where is it? Europa League, 1 FIFA World Club Cup, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Community Shields. But that's what they have won.
Wait a minute, haven't they won the Champions League in that period as well?
Not under the Glazers. Not under the Glazers. Oh no, wait a minute. I think it did in 2008, didn't they? Have I missed it out? FA Cup, League Cup. No, I don't think they have won the Champions League. And I think
we're going to have to Google this.
Maybe okay, so even worse. We'll add another trophy.
Yeah.
If be. But you know what pisses me off? This lot hate the Glazers.
Yeah.
This lot hate the Glazers.
Mate, can you imagine?
1 FA Cup, mate. They hate the Glazers. They're at a final. They've been to a final and won. They scream, "We hate the Glazers." They brought Ronaldo back. They literally have spent 90 million on Casemiro, 90 million on Anthony. Whatever they did on Martinez.
They've outspent City.
And they hate the Glazers. And they still bitch, oh, they're taking money out. They hate them. Listen, why they do it and why I would bite your arm off right now to be in their situation. And people call us entitled. This is a football club, and like you said, listen, Manchester United, we all know their history. We all know Sir Alex Ferguson. We all know Sir Matt Busby. We all know the size, the George Best, the Bobby Charlton, the Becks. We can go on and on and on. This lot hate the Glazers and are still protesting to get them out. They're fed up. Well. And we've got a football team that won 1 trophy in 22 years that do nothing. I mean, it defies logic for me, Phil.
2008, they did. Sorry about the noise. Actually,
that's right.
That was watching. You'll never believe this. That was someone sent me a clip of Coco Lamela scoring a header from a Brian Hill cross to beat Juve.
That's just another story. That's just another story.
So breaking news: players who leave Spurs do well. Yeah, shocker.
So we can add a Champions League to this as well.
So we can add the main one, the Champions League. And to be fair, I understand why you're pissed off on that, Brian. It is galling, to be honest, on both aspects. One, they're better at protesting than us. And 2, they're trying to get people out that have actually, even though they look like evil wizards, do you know what I mean? They look like Coover's arch enemies, don't they, the Glazers? They look like the crew that he was fighting in Hogwarts, right? Coover was on the good wizard side. So he was Gryffindor, and these boys were snaking around in Slytherin or something with the Death Eaters. Shout out to Harry Potter, but and Coover. But listen, these, I mean, mate, what can we say? But look, I've always had a soft spot for Man U, though. I think because some of my formative years, obviously, I was still fairly long in the tooth at that stage, but still a young man at that point in the 90s. Basically, it was Man U or the team we don't mention in front of the kids.
Yes.
So when they were going toe to toe with them, we basically if Man U weren't doing it, then it was a lot down the road. We're winning it. So, but again, look, you've got to give Woolwich a shout out, mate. They're maybe not as bad as we've assumed they are, because anytime we've been down, let's face it, we've had a shocking season by any stretch. We've had a shocking season, but every time we're down, they cheer us up. We think we're having a beast. They fall flat on their face to try and cheer us up. They chuck in the towel in the league just to try and raise our spirits a bit. But look, let's not forget, they're assisting another Manchester club on their way to the treble, just like they did in '99. So, you know, respect Woolwich, yeah, respect Woolwich doing their bits for their Manchester cousins.
That's brilliant. But this is the thing. I mean, this is where it really pisses me off that there's just.
Yeah,
We're going to
incredible,
speak
mate.
about Chelsea briefly, then we're going to get onto the process. But this one really, it's not even about Man U being the size they are. It's not even about the money that they've always had and what they make. It's the fact that they have won this, plus the Champions League that I forgot to add that we've just found out to make it even worse. Plus, like I said, a FIFA World Club Cup and 6 Community Shields.
Yeah.
And they still want this lot out. But we're going to touch on the last one.
And they've been to another 2 Champions League finals in that time as well. Remember, lost to Barcelona twice, didn't they?
It's good, man. It's good. That makes it even better. Blazers out, apparently. This lot we're going to talk very briefly because I want to get onto the main subject and give your rallying cry for Saturday. Well, this lot it's Abramovich.
Yeah.
This is an easy one. This is Abramovich. This was the first big money, blew us away. Funnily enough, came to Tottenham before Chelsea, and a certain man said no. What could have been? This is just this.
Do you know more about this than Brian? Because what I remember about this story was that he was in dialogue with Spurs to buy Spurs. You know, discussions to buy Spurs, and he just happened to be, and it was all going swimmingly, but he just happened to be in a helicopter flying over London, and he saw Stamford Bridge and said, "What's that?" And
I mean, what I do know about it is he was talking. See, he went to Man U first, and Man U were just back then. He was like, "That's ridiculous money." Even though we know what this man had, he wanted a team that did. You got to remember, Man U back then. That was when Old Trafford was glistening and brand new and spanking new, and he was the powers that be. Then he came to us.
Yep.
Started his negotiations. The problem that he saw at one point was obviously the development of the area, which is understandable. We've seen how long it did take to get that shiny toy done. And then, like you, he saw Chelsea, saw a plush bit of real estate in West London.
Yeah.
That was going a lot cheaper, funnily enough, than us. And you got to remember, Chelsea, before he came, were just about up and coming with Ranieri and just starting to do, but they weren't.
To be fair, they've had a good 90s. Have they won a couple of FA Cups? Or
Gianfranco Zola, Di Matteo.
Mate, and look, we're talking about you know, a lot of fans are a bit agitated or trying to play it down about Poch going to Chelsea at the moment. They tend to be in 2 camps. But, you know, Galenda went to Chelsea, didn't he? Which wasn't great to see one of our favourite sons turning out in blue back then. And you know, he played and managed them. You know, that was the thing. Player managers. Hey, this actually might lead on to another topic we won't cover today, but I think we might as well give it to Harry Kane. Make Harry Kane player manager, mate. Do you know what I mean?
I thought you were going there.
Give him 600 grand a week, player manager. You know, Mason can still assist. You know, fuck it, let's go for it, yeah?
Don't put ideas in the heads. Don't put ideas in the
head. Come on, let's go for it.
Mate. Do you know what? What we do need to go for it, and I'm doing this with everyone at the end of the show, Phil. This is your 5 minutes to shine, or however long it takes you, because obviously people know how I feel. People know what I've been saying, what I've been doing, where I've been going. But I've been getting everyone else to do their rallying cry to say just how important Saturday is, and if you can get there, why it's important. So Phil, you've got the power to convince people to get their asses in gear and come to the process. Why should they do it?
Well, first of all, hopefully, Brian, you've picked up on the subliminal messaging. The lamp in the background's yellow. I'm wearing a gold T-shirt, and I've got the old. I've got the best scarf that you know, Amazon money can buy. Other online retailers are available, but you know, that'll get there.
You know what I have to say before you do that? Amazon must be thinking, "What the fuck is going on? Why are so many purple? Like, what is going on here with purple and yellow?" But sorry, you go.
Actually, just before I get into my sales pitch, the last home game, we rocked up with the scarves on, me and the youngster, and my dad, and we're going into block 258 where we sit, shout out to 258. And the steward sort of stopped us and sort of checked us and were like, yeah, can I see your tickets, please? Which they have started doing, to be fair, beforehand. But I could see, you know, when you pick up the vibe and she's checking us out and giving it the old up and down. And then she goes, like, you know, I fronted her up because obviously we had tickets. It wasn't a thing. And then she was like, are you Spurs supporters? And I said, yeah. She goes, what's happening with these colours? No, she said, are you Palace? And I said, no, we're not Palace. We're Spurs. She goes, what's happening with this? So obviously, knee-jerk reaction is, you know, leave you out, mate. Leave you out. Purple and gold till we're sold. But then I was like, these could be on the lookout. They might have had, obviously, I didn't think she'd had the briefing by this stage, so I thought I would have already been out of my ear. But I basically said, oh, yeah, it's away colours, isn't it? You know, Tottenham away. Shout out to Iggy. But, you know, I just, you know, it's just funny, isn't it? You know, things that go through your mind. But look, on to the main event, the protest. It's one of those where I can only imagine, Brian, what you and Graham and Ryan and all the old school that are there, you know, that don't often get their props, but they are there with you guys, rain or shine. You know, a lot of those lads have been supporting Spurs probably even longer than, you know, you and me have combined. You know, they're literally in the trenches with you. Day in, day out, and whatever happens, they're there, rain or shine, with the banners, and you know, they're holding the line. But look, for me, I've been on a bit of a journey with this because we've all known, and you know, you've talked openly about your journey on this and how it started with Martin Jol. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we've known since that day that something's been rotten in the state of Denmark, and it's just what we're willing to let go. Okay, because we all love the club. Football is the most important thing. And you know, again, you've been open about this, Brian. I very much would love if we had been successful under Levy and Lewis. You know, the Poch era, if that had actually led on to major trophies and major successes, I'd have been the first one to pat the guy on the back and say, Levy, you've done it. You've done it organically in the face of everything else. You've built us up commercially to the point where we can compete, and now we're doing it. You know, kudos. You didn't mean to hire Poch, I don't think, but you got him in, and it's working, and it's all going tickety boo. We've got the right recruitment. You know, with the academy's produced Harry Kane, unbelievable. You know, it's all coming together. But unfortunately, fast forward on a few years, and all that glitters isn't gold. And all those nagging doubts in the back of my mind, from Yol to Redknapp, and to all the nearly was there, didn't happen. You know, the Grealish deal that didn't happen, the managers who wanted Tevez and all these players and got bargain basement replacements, the 517 days where we didn't sign anyone. And look, obviously, there's lots of things out there as to why all these things happened. And look, you can't always blame one person. Levy is only one man. I think a lot of this probably comes from beyond him. I think Joe Lewis ultimately does own ENIC, and he has had a lot of power in the club. But clearly, the man in situ, you know, on a day-to-day basis is Daniel. So ultimately, that's where we focus our attention on. And now I think we're getting to the point where even the most moderate, open-minded person that has given the benefit of the doubt and just seen the good that he has tried to do on the commercial side, and giving him the benefit of the doubt all this time, is seeing us. It's not even repeating the problems of the last 22 years. It's repeating the problems of 2 years ago, where we got rid of a manager. We didn't have any succession plan. And we've got a young lad, same young lad in, obviously now he's 2 years more experienced in terms of, you know, putting out the cones. But we're asking a bloke, just because he loves the club, to try and rescue our season, when ultimately we've had some of the best, you know, coaches in the modern era of football come to the club and they couldn't get it going. Now, obviously, you know, I'm not a particular fan in the end of how it ended up with either coach, you know, and I think they didn't help themselves either. But God bless them, they stuck to their guns and did it either way. But for me, the thing that was the final straw for me, and the reason I thought, you know, all this sort of bubbling animosity that I have towards Levy now, enough is enough, was the Super League. Because basically it said to me that he should have been, as the only English chairman, I believe I'm right there, of all the English clubs involved, he should have been the one that said, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't passing the sniff test. This isn't, it's obviously not cricket, but it's not cricket. You know, it's not competitive. It's not in the spirit of the game. And British fans will never wear this. English fans will not wear this. But he is tone deaf when it comes to football matters. Yes, does it make commercial sense to push forward with a Super League? Is there problems with UEFA? And anyone who's read or seen the plans for the new Champions League in 2 seasons' time, basically it's Super League in anything but name. So, you know, it's all crooked and it's all wrong. And if, you know, the Super League could have been a force for good in many ways, you know, and it could have been a good thing. But to try and run roughshod over the trust and their representation of the fans, and just generally pay no heed to the fans whatsoever. Again, absolute cowardice, announcing it late on a Saturday evening, I think it was.
You
know, what is this? You know it stinks, otherwise you wouldn't be releasing on a Saturday night when everyone, exactly. Just like Conte, just like when Conte was binned. Absolutely ridiculous. We're all sitting down to watch, you know, Sunday night TV, just have a bit of a relax before the working week. Spurs light up our socials again. Unbelievable. So for me, that was it. But unfortunately, what happened then, we saw a groundswell of fan involvement and protest at all of the English clubs involved. Man City, again, probably read the room best out of everyone, and they pulled out pretty much straight away, didn't they? But then you saw the level of protesting that there was at Arsenal, at Chelsea, at Man U. And look, I'm not condoning any of the criminality that was at Old Trafford and the way that they got the Man U Liverpool game called off, right? But in the end of the day, you saw the strength of what power we have when we come together as people. Yes, we are customers, but customers do have the biggest thing, which is, you know, purchasing power. And look, we can't go on down the road. We can't, unlike if, you know, someone serves up slop in a restaurant, we can't just say, look, not eating here again. Let's take it down the road to the next restaurant. You know, none of us are going to go and support Leyton Orient on a regular basis. We're definitely not going to go to Woolwich. So, you know, Spurs is in our blood. And, you know, unfortunately for us, we're going to have to carry this can till the last days unless we jack it in completely. So it's here. This is us. But we can make our voices heard. So what I would say to people is, do come together. Do try. And if you've had enough, even if you don't believe in the fact Levy should step aside or Levy should go or ENIC should go, if you're just fed up with the lack of planning, the wasting of money on transfers, the lack of planning about a new director of football, even though we knew Paratici was in the mud, even if you're worried about who the next manager is going to be because everyone and their dog turns us down, but we seem to just like a 5-year-old in a playground say, no, I didn't want to play with them anyway. I took my ball and went home before they said they wouldn't play with me. Nagelsmann, thank you very much. But I would just say, come and lend your support to the movement, because when we stand together, we might not be able to force them to sell, because unless Brian, you and I scrape together a few quids and get a bit of crowdfunding going, which I've got, you know, I think that could work, by the way. Obviously, need me more than me and you to put our hands in our pockets. But unless someone comes along with a few billion quid. We know we can't force them to sell. It's a privately owned business now. But what we can do is tell them enough is enough. Because if you just go quietly into the night, they will just carry on the way that it's been going. This show tonight, what's it been about? It's been about how successful the other clubs that make up the Big Six are. Why should we be included in this Big Six?
Yep.
It's only because of the history of people like Birkinshaw. Bill Nick built this club. Don't let Levy and Lewis tear it down brick by brick like they did White Hart Lane. We can make this club great again. If you like orange politicians from America, we can make Tottenham great again, but we can only do it if we make our voices heard. If you can't get there on Saturday before Brentford, get on the socials.
Yep.
Keep doing what you're doing on there because it's been phenomenal. But please, for the love of God, if you feel in any way like Brian and I feel, if any of this is ringing a bell with you, if you have been apathetic towards this season, but you're going on Saturday, come and have a chat with us. We're not as unfriendly as we may seem on YouTube streams. We are okay in real life. Come and see us. Come and say hello. Have a debate. If you don't agree with us, come and chat. Let's talk it out. Because in the end of the day, we are all Spurs. And like my dad always says, he was here before Levy and he'll be here after him, right? One day, Levy will be gone. One day we'll all be gone, but this great club will still be here. Let's make sure that the next generation have a better time in the next 20 years than we've had in the last 22 and a bit years. Okay. That is what I ask. Just please, please don't moan, don't bitch, and don't sit there quietly and just take your lot in life. You can change what's happening at this club, but you've got to believe you can do it. But you can. Believe you me, you can. And even if we can't, you know what? By doing something proactive about your life, you'll feel better about it. So get on down, come and say hello. I'll be a prick wearing a purple and gold scarf.
I think there'll be a few.
There might be a few. Listen, mate, if the good man Crackers is coming down, there'll be at least 51 of us on Saturday. So if anyone out there is listening to this and wants to get involved, that'll make it 52. You'll be more than welcome. And let's get involved. Just get involved, lads and ladies.
Exactly.
Let's get involved.
It's the final time to do it. I'm going to leave with 3 stats. But before I leave with 3 stats and give my sign off, just to make this feel a little bit what Phil said, and just to start poking the bear a little bit more. First of all, Phil, thank you for coming on. Loved doing this with you. It's going to be the first of many. Now you're on. We're not going to get rid of you. Honestly,
it's
mate,
like Eric Dyer, mate. Now that I'm in, I'm not leaving.
But we want you to stay forever, not like him. But I just want to mention 3. This is how we're going to end it, with 3 things that have happened tonight. Tonight is the 18th of May. At time of recording, Newcastle United are 1 win away from Champions League football after an owner took after them for 1 year when they were 19th in the league, stuck with Eddie Howe, who didn't have anything near Conte's repertoire, backed him. Champions League is one game away. At time of recording, West Ham United tonight made it to a Conference League final. A Conference League final. They could be winning a trophy before us. If they win it, and I've said I don't care if they win it because it will be the kick up the arse because we're not going to hear the end of it. And finally, you sack Jose Mourinho 6 days before a final. He goes to Roma, wins the first Conference League. So he's got another European trophy, every trophy. Winning that Europa League conference puts you in the Europa League. Guess who's just got into the final of the Europa League tonight?
AS Roma.
Jose Mourinho, sacked 6 days before a final at Tottenham Hotspur. Goes to another job. Keeps his winning record at every club he goes to, except Tottenham Hotspur. 2 years, 2 finals. They will win it. They could be in the Champions League next year. Guys, we spoke about trophies. What trophy? Big up to Phil. even though you're there. I always do that wrong. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and as always, Levy out. Talk.